Heyo, you're listening to Edge Coach Quip, featuring our very own Edge coaches and community, dropping knowledge nuggets to fuel your day.
All right, welcome to episode 120 of Coach Quip. I'm Coach Chris.
I'm Coach Robyn, and today we're talking about myths about strength training.
I'm excited for this one.
I am too. These are aplenty. I think we surprised ourselves listing them out.
Yeah, and I was like going deep into some childhood trauma about things I remember hearing when I was a kid about strength training, about who should strength train, what strength training is. We were talking about the bodybuilding phase of like the 1980s,
which did shape how a lot of people feel about it.
Yes, as well as like the Jane Fonda fitness craze, right? So we have a lot of myths to work from here. And we're going to go, well, actually, you had a story you wanted to tell.
Yeah,
first, right?
So strength training, from an Edge perspective, is an interesting one, right? So we opened pretty heavily focused on recovery because our original space, which we lovingly call HQ or headquarters now, it was really 10 years ago, right? Recovery was kind of the new thing. So we had a small area dedicated to strength, and then probably at that time, like 75% of our facility dedicated to recovery. Well, that strength started building, right? And for a while, we were actually doing it downstairs in the lounge. Every night, we'd move all the chairs out. And
that's wild.
Yeah, it was great. And then all of the members would help us move them back, in the morning. And then we ran out of room that way, and then eventually went up to the loft, ran out of room that way. And then around late 2017, early 2018, we were like, we need more space. So that's actually when we opened the annex. And at that time, we were really having some really awesome growth, but then also people got really into strength training, and we quadrupled, I don't even remember our strength offerings, which was amazing. But I think the result of that was even cooler because that same year in 2018, we will typically, especially pre-COVID, when everybody was really racing the exact same things at the exact same times of year, we would poll our athletes in the fall and take metrics of, did you PR? If so, by how much did you recover? How much did you sleep? How much did you weight train? How was nutrition? All of those things. And 2018 was really such a big shift for us, and we went from 85 to a 93% PR rate, and that includes people who did their first marathon as well. Not that we only have marathoners, but it's our biggest group of people to ask these questions to. Mm-hmm. And we were like, wow, that is a really big difference.
Wait, say it again.
85 to 93% PR rate in 1 year, year on year. And the only metric that changed was strength training, which, in our hearts we probably knew, right? Because we had to double our space in order to accommodate this growth in strength. Right. But it went from them doing it just under once a week to having them do it an average of just over 2 times a week. So it was just 2 classes a week. Made the difference of them hitting their PR, completing their first marathon, and we had about a 30% reduction in injuries as well.
Oh, wow.
So if you need any evidence that it works, that year-on-year data really kind of blew us away, and it changed how we did business really from there on out. And recovery is still very much a part of who we are, but our training is definitely a much bigger component of what makes up our Edge athletes' kind of activities.
Yeah, we give you a reason to recover. So I think we've done episodes in the past about strength training, why we need to be strength training and things like that, particularly in this base phase that most athletes are in, and you can check the last episode for information about base training. Strength training should be a priority right now, as it should be something that we are consistently doing, but we also know it's the first thing to slip. So in this episode, we're going to go through some of the most common myths that we hear and that we could think of about strength training and do a little myth busting.
All right, myth number 1. All right, we got a lot of them, so buckle in. Endurance athletes should avoid strength training. I can't tell you how many plans I see that just don't even have it written in. Not even a placeholder for time. Like it's just not there at all. The myth is really that incorporating strength training, can, derail, or there's just not enough time. We have all of these reasons of why we should avoid it if we're choosing to do something aerobic, right, and endurance-based. But at the end of the day, if we do incorporate it, it's actually going to enhance our performance. So not go the other direction, because it makes you have more muscle strength, more muscle power, It's definitely going to make you more symmetrical, make you more resilient and resistant to injuries. It also really helps correct imbalances. We are not symmetrical. There is not one of us that is symmetrical. And so we are always going to need to try to minimize those imbalances as much as possible, of course, prevent injuries, and can really improve your run economy or cycling economy or swim economy. I can't tell you how many times people have gotten into strength and they're like, wow, and at the end of the day, not only am I faster, but my upper back isn't super fatigued, right? Or I'm not bending forward at the end of a marathon. That is all a testament to strength training working as magic.
Yeah, regardless of how long those races are. And I know I've actually heard other athletes here talk about the way you've programmed the wind runners' strength, and just seeing their success and how fast they are, it shows the other athletes here like, oh, well, if the wind runners are doing strength 2 to 3 times a week, then we should be doing that too, because clearly it's working.
It's working.
Yep. All right, myth number 2 is that endurance athletes should focus only on high repetition and low weight lifting.
Oh, this is one that I definitely heard growing up.
I definitely heard this growing up too, like the 2-pound, mom weights, I'd call them, the 2-pounders, and just knocking out 100 bicep curls. This is sort of what I think of when I hear this myth, but the truth is that a well-rounded program is gonna include some of that high repetition, just as it might also include some body weight exercises, but it will also incorporate some heavy lifting, low reps, high weight. It depends on where people are at in their training program and where we would plug these into our strength training program. But there's absolutely a place for high weight, low reps, and then maybe some of that high rep, lower weight, as well as body weight. But it is not all just 2-pound weights for 400 reps. Yeah.
100%. All right, myth number 3, strength training will make endurance athletes bulky.
Oh. Yeah.
There's a reason that if you follow, especially I feel like our female endurance athletes, I remember specifically, she's not competing anymore, but when Shalane Flanagan would post about her strength workouts, I mean, she is literally lifting like a CrossFitter, right? Because she is very intentionally overloading her body to be able to support her endurance. So you don't significantly bulk up with, just lifting, 2 to 4 times a week, regular lifting. You have to be incredibly intentional if you would ever try to bulk up and go into like a bodybuilding phase. And you would have to really kind of shift your macros in order for that to happen. But regular strength training on top of an endurance plate, you're not going to bulk. You're going to be okay. This is also a super typical comment that we hear from women, that they don't want to lift because they don't want to bulk up. I personally notice that when I lift more, I don't bulk, I tend to tone. So I might even weigh a little bit more, but my pants fit with, a little bit more comfort, or my sports bras feel a little bit different, not tighter, just like a little bit more room because my body is just a little bit more dialed in.
Yeah, and this is I feel like we're moving away from that for many women. It's not as big of a myth as it used to be, which is a good thing. But also, you mentioned toning, and I feel like that is a very
80s.
It's maybe 80s, but it's a very a way that women have been conditioned to think about strength training is like. I've never heard a man say that they're toned. It's just it's fascinating how we've shifted or how we've shaped language to talk about these in different groups of people. But the truth is, you're not going to bulk up.
Don't you worry.
All right, myth number 4 is that strength training will slow down endurance athletes. When I read this one, I also thought about stretching, because I feel like this is a common myth about it being net harmful to endurance athletes to stretch too much or to do strength training. This couldn't be farther from the truth. As we mentioned, all of the parts about injury prevention and prepping your body for harder work in running is done through strength training, particularly in this base period. And that strength training can really improve your running economy, as you mentioned. That piece about not feeling fatigued in your upper back or in your neck as you're in the later miles of a longer race, that is a testament to strength training. And the longer we can keep good form, the better we will perform on race day. And a lot of that has to do with having the muscular structure to maintain that good form.
And a little bit of a sidebar specific to upper body strength, right? Our upper body is really kind of what dictates how our lower body moves. So if our upper body moves more efficiently, guess what's happening? Our legs are doing a heck of a lot better. Coupled with, if we hold ourselves better and have prettier posture, it also means your lungs are more able to take in a full lungful of air, which automatically makes us faster because we are better at taking in and moving oxygen and blood around, which is what we ultimately are doing when we are running, cycling, swimming, anything from an endurance base. All right, next up, myth number 5, that endurance athletes only need body weight exercises for strength training. It's not saying that body weight exercises are bad, because they can be incredibly helpful. It just shouldn't be the only thing that we do. They're really great though. I always say something's always better than nothing. So if you're traveling and this is what you've got, freaking go for it, right? Mm-hmm. This is already going to be better than nothing. So we like them. We'd like body weight for sure. And their body weight exercises are in every single one of our classes. It's just not the only thing that we have. But we really also like to incorporate weights for weights training. It really is what creates that kind of external resistance so that bodies can get more progressive with their load, and that's really where you're going to make your strength gains, right? Mm-hmm. You do make gains if you hold a plank for 30, 45, 60 seconds. Those gains are great, but if you're doing that combined with being able to, let's say, curl 10, 12, then 15 pound weights, now we're making progressive gains in a couple of different ways, and really we're using that weight to be able to build it.
All right, our next myth is that strength training is only for the off season. Obviously, this is wrong. We see that athletes do more strength training in the off season, but your strength training should not go away once you hit that build phase or get closer to your races. There's absolutely a need to keep strength training in year round to hold on to that good efficiency, and it can be strategically implemented so that you have those strength gains later on without negatively impacting your run form or your endurance. We often see our athletes shift to more focus on core work as we're going through, and like part of that is how we write our plans in incorporating more core work, knowing that that's necessary for our cyclists and for our swimmers and our runners. But also, I think that's just what athletes sort of think, like, if I'm holding on to one piece of strength training, I need to hold on to that core work, when the truth is total body work and those heavier weights are also effective throughout any period of your training cycle, not just in the off season.
And I'm going to go ahead and refer anyone that hasn't listened to episode 119, the one just prior than this, right now, because we addressed this specifically, noting that during your base or off season, that kind of in between or that ramp up, that you should be strength training 2 to 4 times a week, and then it's okay to take it down 1 to 3, provided you've done that for that 6 to 12 week phase. When you're going into build and peak, and those numbers will speak volumes in your performances and reduction in injury. Lucky myth number 7. Strength training is primarily for the upper body. I know we've talked a lot about upper body stuff. However, full body strength training is really what you want to be looking at for the endurance athlete. It helps improve overall functional strength, stability, power transfer. It also helps minimize those imbalances. It does mean if you wanted to, if you're strength training 3 times a week, you could have primarily upper body focus on one, maybe core focus on the other, and then lower body on the third. But that means during the whole week, that is a total body focus.
Right. And I think a lot of people think this because they're saying, well, my legs are doing all the work cycling or running, and I don't want to bulk up my legs. Like, it honestly doesn't work that way, people. I don't want to bulk up my legs / I don't want my legs to be sore for my runs. And so I'll just strength train my upper body. And yeah, that's not the way that it works out best. 2 things piggybacking on that. One is it really is how you pair it, right? So if you're doing a total body or even a strength workout that your legs might be, one of my classes, your classes that might be a little bit heavier on legs, do the run beforehand, right? And also, you'll save a shower. Yes, I'm going to work that into every single tip, all right? The other thing where people, endurance athletes say, I don't want to strengthen my lower body because it's doing all the work, running 50 miles a week. Running is, and all cardio is, but especially running is a catabolic exercise. It will break down muscle. We need you to put muscle on
so that we are not only accounting for that attrition, but also so that we are preventing you from injuring yourself. Running is not a strength exercise. It is going to break you down much more than it's going to build you up, which means we need strength training, mobility, all of that good stuff to help build you up.
Number 8 is that strength training won't improve endurance-related skills. And strength training is actually able to enhance your biomechanics. We talked about good run form and being able to maintain that. Your coordination can also be improved through strength training, and your neuromuscular control, all of which contribute to endurance-specific skills when you're out there on the road or on a bike. And I think especially like trail running, this is one of the reasons why I love trail running. I think trail running is still cardio and is still great to be doing trail running easy AF, but it has a little bit of a strength component to it. It's dynamic, and we can see that crossover specifically when you're doing strength training and then you go out on trails and you have that ankle stability and you have that lower leg stability. That's one of the spaces where I think that you can really see that crossover from strength to running.
My other big reason for this one being debunked, that it won't improve endurance specific skills. Okay, people, endurance is literally how well do we move blood and oxygen around in our body. Mm-hmm. If we build a little bit more muscle, guess what? We build more pathways for that blood and oxygen to get around. So are you going to get somewhere? Are you going to get from here to West Aurora faster if you have more lanes? Yeah. Yeah, you're building a better highway through strength training, which is the epitome of what builds better endurance.
That was a great nerdy add-on.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it.
It's my specialty. All right, and last but not least, number 9. Once you start strength training, results will be immediate. Oh boy. So think of it just like endurance training, right? Strength gains take time. Consistency and progressive overload take time. We probably need you to get through at least a few weeks so where you're not kind of feeling, as trashed. And then after that, and you start racing, 6, 8, 12 weeks in is where you start to see those long-term benefits. I will say, you start to feel better faster, I think, than just a straight cardio build.
I agree.
We had an athlete come back after being very sedentary, and he literally said, 3 weeks in, I'm hitting my groove. I'm not quite as sore after class. Mm-hmm. I understand, where to fit stuff. And he was really jazzed with how he felt. And that was, I might add, I think 6 classes in. So 2 classes a week, 6 classes in, he's starting to lift exactly where he left off. And I think that's a very feasible number, right?
Yeah, and that is definitely not the same if you have not been running for a while and come back. You cannot expect to be where you left running after 6 sessions.
Right, 100%. Nor should you be. Your body should be limiting you on some level, but it's pretty cool that strength can return faster, because that's the thing. Again, we're talking about carts and horses. Yeah. That is the horse, right? We want the strength training to lead.
Yeah, and this foundation that you can build through strength training should also be progressive, as you mentioned. And what we mean by that is you're going to build over time. So you're either building the number of reps or you're increasing the weight and keeping the rep count the same. It's one of the concerns that people have coming into a strength class is, while we program our classes, some coaches might program progressively. Like, as an example, some of my arms, abs, and ass class is over the course of a month progresses throughout upon itself. But not everybody makes the same classes every week. And so if you're just dropping into a class, it's your responsibility to scale to where you are. So you can either regress or increase the exercise. You can add or subtract weight. You can go to body weight. So there are so many different ways that you can customize your strength plan. And this is where a coach can really come in with help on helping you in whatever phase you're in of making sure that the strength training is appropriate for your goals and for the time period that you're in.
All right. Everyone, just as a reminder, responds to strength training differently. And not every day you're going to feel the same. So you should absolutely tailor your strength training programs for you, for your needs, if you're a coach, to your athlete's needs and goals. And as always, working with a coach, it can be super helpful, whether that's a coach physically in class or that's a coach, like a personal coach that's writing your programming.
So we just went through 9 different myths about strength training for endurance athletes. And the reality is, the fact of all of this is that endurance athletes do need strength training for a variety of reasons. You can go back and recap by listening to this episode again. But the truth is that you need strength classes. We have them here at Edge, so you can check out our calendar of offerings
at edgeathlete.me/classes.
And we hope to see you in a strength class soon.
Stay strong.
Thanks for listening to Coach Quip. Original music performed by Ment. Follow us online on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Edge Athlete Lounge. Our podcast lives in the blog section of our website. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and you can check out the show notes for additional ways to contact us. Ready, set, onward we go.